This is my horse Happy. He is a Standardbred gelding, and at the time that this was taken, he was 8 years old. So this would be 2017 when I first started leasing him, and then eventually bought him from the barn that I was taking lessons at. He was trained under saddle as a hunter jumper, but he started his career as a harness racer, and he raced from his 2-year-old year to his 4-year-old year. So this is him. He's number 4 in the green pad. This is, I think, the only race that I saw he won his last year of racing in 2013. So this would be one of our first rides at the new ranch. We ended up moving ranches after I bought him, a little up the road from where we were originally. He was very difficult to keep cantering. It may look like this was not too bad of a canter, but I could not really keep him going without being super tense and really holding him with my legs and my hands. So he was very difficult to ride in the beginning. And on top of him being tense to ride and keep together, he was also very stressed and tense in general. So he would spook a lot in the outdoor arena and the indoor arena. And the first couple months I came off probably 2 to 3 times a month. And it just was how he was. He just was really stressed out about a lot of things and just acted pretty green. I continued trying to jump him even though I wasn't taking lessons. I am green to jumping as well as he was, so both of us were kind of learning together, and I didn't like to jump without a trainer, but he really enjoyed it and I really enjoy jumping. So we did set up some small courses every now and then and go over them, but as you can see, we're pretty green to it and it wasn't a very pretty sight. A lot of our struggle in the beginning was trying to get a true 3-beaded canter. I tried to use pulls and jumping to help him to keep that canter going. It didn't always work out very well for us, as you just saw us going through that line of pulls was very tough. So keeping him in that 3-beat was very hard. He would crossfire a lot and he would also tranter a lot. And this was a problem that I had ongoing for a long time. By summer of 2018, we had been together for almost a year, and I felt like at the trot we were getting somewhere. I felt like he was finally getting a real true beaded gait to that. He before would kind of pace into the trot, and he wasn't very two beaded or cadenced in the trot at all. So I felt like we were getting somewhere with that. The canter, we still had so much tension, and making circles was just awful because we'd get maybe 2 or 3 good strides, and then he would start pacing and fall out of it. So a lot of my work was spent doing canter circles, and every time he would fall out of the canter, I would trot, try to collect him again, and then take off at the canter. But as you can see, I'm still struggling with him pacing behind. I'm still struggling with him spooking. Just not a relaxed horse at all. Very, very, very tense most of the time. So as summer went on, we did get a lot better at our cantering. He was a little bit more balanced. I felt like he was using himself a little better, and I was able to maintain his canter. One thing I wanted to mention too was that Happy is very much, or was very much at the time, a kick ride. He still is a little bit, but at this time I had to use all the leg I could use. I had a crop, I used spurs. He was incredibly difficult to keep moving. So he was tense, he was hard to maintain at the canter, and he was just really dead to the leg. So here was probably towards the end of summer. We were doing a small little jump course. Somebody else had set these jumps up. I did not set them up. I was just playing with the ones that I felt like we were capable of doing on our own. And you can see his canter is not great at all, but it is a little bit better than it was in those prior videos where he was mainly pacing and not really keeping a three-beated canter. So I was feeling pretty happy with what was going on with this, and the fact that he was actually able to canter up to a jump and canter a few strides away from the jump was big progress for me. So in September of 2018, I broke my arm, and that course that you just saw, Happy stopped in his tracks at something that scared him, and then I fell off and broke my arm. So we spent a lot of time doing groundwork and just bonding for the month that I was in a cast. This next video, I wanted to just point out his body condition. I felt like he was really well muscled here, and he was looking really good, and I do feel like his riding was actually getting a lot better too at this point, so I felt like we were making really good progress. In December 2018, I started to have some even tenser rides than before. I felt like we were getting to a point where he was more relaxed through his body and easier cantering and moving forward, but this day was very difficult to ride him. It was a very cold and a very rainy day after work that I got on, and you can see here he just looks incredibly stiff and really off actually. The canter is incredibly slow. We were crawling, I felt like, and it just was not comfortable to ride. It was very rigid and he was very stiff. And I wasn't really sure what was going on with him at this point, but it was a very different horse than what I was used to riding. I always rode a tense horse, but this to me was like there was something physically going wrong with him at this point. When the weather got a little warmer, he started to ride a little better, and that perplexed me. I didn't know why the weather being warmer would be better, but I have heard about cold-backed horses, so I assumed maybe as he was aging that was starting to affect him. I also wondered too if maybe being an ex-harness racer that he was having arthritis, and that was why those rides in the wintertime of 2018 were just so difficult for me. Because as you can see here, I feel like he looks way better than he did in that prior video. So I just took it to mean that maybe next winter I would blanket heavier and we would just go from there. So even though I felt like he was moving a lot better here and we were actually clicking and things were going really well with him riding wise, I still wanted to take lessons. I felt like I was hitting a little bit of a wall with what to do next and where to go with him. So I looked around at the trainers that were at this current barn and I decided to take lessons with Stephanie Walker at Free Heart Stables. in May of 2019. So we wanted to get a good foundation on Happy, and so Stephanie's guidance was to start with groundwork, and I'm asking him here to move his hind end over to start learning to unlock that lumbar area of his back and engage his back more. And as you can see, he just meets me with anger and frustration. He was never good at lunging, but this just showed how bad he was at it, and looking at this now, I realize he was in an incredible amount of pain. We used a lot of bending and smaller circles to try to get him to reach under his body with his hind end and engage his back. So that's what you're seeing here. This would probably be like after maybe my third lesson, we started doing this. And he already, to me, looks so much more relaxed through his body and happier with what is being asked of him. And now we are into fall, so this would probably be about 6 lessons under our belt, and my horse looks like a new horse. He is so much more relaxed, he's more engaged through his body, he's reaching under himself much better, and he just looks so good to me. I was so pleased with the progress we had made just in those 6 lessons that I was so excited to just keep taking lessons with Stephanie and see how far we could get, because I had almost given up on anything other than just having Happy as a pleasure horse and a trail horse, and now my dreams of actually making him into a hunter were becoming a reality. This was probably one of our last rides at this ranch. Stephanie was moving to a place that had 32-acre grass turnout 24/7. That was probably about 5 miles up the road, and we were going to go with her. After seeing how much progress Happy had made in just 6 months with taking lessons twice a month with Stephanie, I was willing to follow her anywhere. Happy looks so good here. He is so relaxed. He's actually stretching and trying to engage his back and hind end, and just the results that I was seeing were beyond what I even dreamed could be achieved by him. So we definitely were looking forward to the move with Stephanie and could not wait to start 2020. "2020 did not start as planned for us. Happy lost 100 pounds when we moved to this ranch, and we started to feed him alfalfa and a high protein, high nutrient ration balancer, and he did start to put on weight, but it just wasn't coming the way that we thought it should. He also became a lot more tense and a lot spookier, and he was kind of going back to how he was in December of 2018 when it was cold and rainy and gross outside. He was not really achieving as much relaxation and connection through his body as he had in the months prior, and Stephanie and I were really not unsure what was going on. He also had some random shifting lamenesses that would come and go, including one that was so bad that we did call the vet out to have him checked, but of course after a night of stall rest, Happy was fine the next day. For as long as I had owned Happy, he had also been barefoot with no foot issues, and moving here, he had developed 2 abscesses in his feet, and he seemed very footsore most of the time. So the one recommendation from the vet was to put all 4 shoes on him and go from there. So that's kind of the next path that we took, was to put shoes on Happy and see if maybe over the next couple weeks he would start to relax more and be more comfortable. So for Happy's spring vet appointment, I decided to get some blood work done on him. I did a full panel and I wanted to just see what his basic levels were. I was not expecting to find anything on the blood panel. In my eyes, he was healthy other than his foot issues. We did the blood work right after this trail ride, and in this trail ride we did a lot of gallop sets and a lot of hill work, and he was really stiff following this trail ride and was just really like a bored to ride. So the blood work was done directly after all of this intense activity for him. So his blood work results came back with elevated enzymes that indicated muscle damage. My vet immediately assumed that he had PSSM, and we needed to figure out if he had PSSM type 1 or PSSM type 2. So I grabbed a mane sample from him and sent the mane hair off to Animal Genetics. They do the testing in the US for type 1. This picture shows just like how much weight he lost. This was January, and you can see his ribs and his hips sticking out. He looks horrible here. And then here you can see how much pain he was in. So he had lost a lot of weight, but then he also was just lethargic and in pain. And you can see that from his flared nostril and his wrinkled eyelid and just the general stance of like, I'm not comfortable. I got my result back from Animal Genetics, and he ended up being negative for both copies of that. So that was good news. We were happy to find out that he was negative for that, but I also wanted to test him for type 2. For type 2, you can either do a muscle biopsy, which is the recommended diagnostic, or you can do an experimental diagnostic, which is sending another mane hair sample to a company called Equisec. They test for 6 different genetic variants that can cause myopathies and supposedly are related to PSSM type 2. So I sent a hair sample to Equisec because I did not want to go through a muscle biopsy with him. And his results came back that he was positive for a variant in the gene P2, which means that he has myofibrillar myopathy. We started to treat him with the right supplements like vitamin E, magnesium, elevated levels of amino acids, and also giving him more fats as opposed to sugars in his diet. And he started to improve. So this would be around May of 2020. We decided to enter in a dressage show online since everything was closed down during COVID, and he looks so much better. He's gained so much weight back and muscle too, and he just looks happier and more alert and like he's actually there mentally and not just in a pain fog like he was before. This is intro C. So if you know intro C, there's 2 canter circles, one both ways. And so this is our first canter circle to the right. And the judge's comment to this was just rough. And I agree that it is rough and it's not great, but for what we had gone through with him, especially at the beginning of this year, it was amazing. I was just so thrilled that we actually were able to canter in a test. I was so happy. So shortly after that, we moved from that ranch due to some disagreements we had with management over feeding of the horses and how much to be fed. And Happy lived at my trainer's property for about 2 months, where we further tweaked his diet and supplements and got him looking like this and in a canter like this. Just, I can't believe that he looks so good. And here we are. We moved to this property down in Hollister, and we are now really on our way to showing. Happy looks so good. He's doing so much better on the diet that he's on. We're currently feeding him soybean hulls, which give him a lot of amino acids. We're feeding him copra cool stance, which gives him really good quality cool fats for his sources of energy. He's also still on vitamin E, magnesium. He takes a multivitamin supplement as well, along with salt pellets, and I think that might be it. He might have 1 or 2 other things like flaxseed in there, but those are the main things that we are feeding him to treat his PSSM. And he's just doing better and better. He's still a little bit on the forehand at the canter, and he still has some issues with relaxation, but I think that these are just normal horse issues now, and they're not dealing with PSSM or any type of pain-related issues. My goal for Happy for 2021 is to start out in the hunter ring and kind of get our feet wet and figure out how he's going to be at horse shows, and then ultimately end up in the jumper ring. I feel like both of us are going to really enjoy jumping as opposed to hunters, so we changed our plans just a little bit, but I can't wait to get there, and I'm just so excited for that. I wanted to make this video because I wanted it to be known that Standardbreds are not useless as sport horses, that they can easily be retrained to canter, to do dressage, jumping, hunters, anything that you want them to do. I didn't realize there was a stigma against Standardbreds until I bought Happy, and then was made well aware of it by all of the people who like to watch me and were very judgmental about Happy. A lot of reasons why I didn't take lessons when I moved ranches was because trainers didn't want to work with him because he was a Standardbred, and they thought that he was useless more than just basically being a trail horse. A lot of our issues too, starting out, I realize now were not because he was a Standardbred, but because he had PSSM. PSSM type 2 takes effect when they are 8 years old, between 8 years old and 10 years old, and I bought Happy when he was 8. So I do think that in the beginning, when he was behind the leg and having issues holding a canter and a true 3-beaded canter, those were all PSSM related. And then they started to get worse and worse as he got older. His issues in wintertime were all related to PSSM. His inability to keep a true gait and his shifting lamenesses all related to PSSM. So if your horse is having an issue and it seems like training's not helping it, look into the medical. I wish that I had looked into his medical history and his issues sooner, and if I had, I think that we would have been further along in our progress by now. Thank you for watching. I hope that this was educational and helpful for somebody.